Now to an ABC News exclusive. Bernie Madoff is breaking his silence. The con man behind the biggest Ponzi scheme in history decided to speak out from his prison cell, and it is no surprise to us that one more time ABC's Barbara Walters got the big interview. She joins us now to tell us about it. And Barbara, Bernie has so much to say. But first, how did he seem to you personally?
Well, at times he was teary-eyed, but for the most part he was very composed. He has a little bit of a tic when he gets emotional. He is in the Butner Correctional Complex, which is a medium security federal prison in North Carolina. He's with the general population. No cameras or tape recorders are allowed, but pens and paper are. And he told us, as you will hear, some very surprising things. In a 2-hour prison interview, Bernie Madoff told me that he is happier now than he's been in years. He said, quote, "I feel safer here than outside. I know I will die in prison, but I lived the last 20 years of my life in fear. Now I have no fear because I'm no longer in control of my own life." When I asked him if he missed his old life, he responded, "Hell no." Madoff acknowledges that he should be punished, and he realizes that he destroyed his family. He said that before he went to prison, during his 4 months in a New York jail, he did contemplate suicide, but didn't have the courage to do it. He says now he never thinks about suicide. Today he is in therapy and has learned to compartmentalize what he did. He works during the day, but rarely sleeps at night and has horrible nightmares, he says. I asked him if he was depressed, and he said, "Yes, but the fact that I am functioning troubles me a great deal. You can't do what I've done without guilt." As for his wife, Ruth, Madoff says that after his son Mark committed suicide last December, Ruth said to him, "Let me go." He says they have not seen or talked to each other since. He added, "Ruth doesn't hate me. She has no one." She told him that he had it easier in prison than she, saying, "You are sheltered in there. No one is judging you." About his victims, Madoff said, quote, "I understand why clients hate me. The gravy train is over. I can live with that. But the average person thinks I robbed widows and orphans. I made wealthy people wealthier." He says he does take full responsibility for his crimes, but he added, "Nobody put a gun to my head. I never planned to do anything wrong. Things just got out of hand. I don't believe I'm a bad guy or stupid." Today, the man who ran the largest Ponzi scheme in history calls himself a glorified bad boy, working in the commissary for $170 a month. So, you know, it seems that right now almost everybody in the Madoff family is writing a book. He says that he isn't. He also says that he's treated with respect, especially the younger people, and that they look up to him, which he says is wrong, that they do it for the wrong reasons. Interestingly, in the next cell is Jonathan Pollard. Remember him, the convicted Israeli spy? Yeah. And Madoff says that even though he has no visitors, he does have friends in prison.
Did he say if anyone else is guilty, he worked with anyone?
He says that his wife and sons knew nothing. He's been saying that before. But when he was arrested in 2008, he says the government said that he should, quote, "name names." But he refused, and he said, "I decided that I ruined enough lives, and it was my fault. I deserve to be punished. I deserve to go to jail." And he said that he was relieved to know that some of the investors that he's ripped off would get their principal back. But that remains to be seen.
Boy, that is just fascinating stuff. Barbara, thanks very much.
Thank you, George.
Name any luxury item, yachts, mansions, art collections, race cars, diamonds, even ancient artifacts. Chances are the U.S. government likely owns it. That's right, your government. It's all legal. In fact, it's justice.
Whether they're narcotics traffickers, arms traffickers, terrorists, publicly corrupt officials, or your standard securities fraudsters. In every single type of case that we bring, we try to make sure that we are looking at ways in which we can take the profit out of the crime and to return money to the victims.
It's called asset forfeiture. This year alone, the Justice Department made $1.6 billion seizing property. Almost half of that money, $800 million, came from cases prosecuted in New York's Southern District, run by U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara.
In the last fiscal year alone, we have managed to bring in, through the concept of forfeiture, approximately $800 million in funds or in property, which is about 16 times what our annual operating budget is, which I believe is better than most hedge funds these days.
Prosecutions of white-collar crimes, ethnic Ponzi schemes, and financial fraud are at an all-time high. Given the caliber of criminals you're going after in certain cases, the Bernie Madoffs, the Mark Dryers, are you ever surprised at simply what certain people own? I mean, do you think, oh my God?
You know, not much surprises us these days. Oftentimes, the motivation for engaging in some of this criminal conduct is greed, and the fact that some of these items are so ostentatious is a reflection of what the motivation was for engaging in those crimes in the first place.
This is just a small sample of what the government has right now. Want a Bentley? Well, a new one will cost you up to $250,000. Like most everything here, these two will be auctioned off to the highest bidder. Ponzi schemer Bernie Madoff's beach home sold for almost $9 million. Jewelry given as a gift to actress Anne Hathaway by her currently incarcerated ex-boyfriend sold for more than $63,000. Some people may wonder, do you ever think about the cases you're going to pursue based on the amount of money you're likely to bring in?
No. We pursue cases for one reason only, to hold people accountable for their crimes.
The $800 million will be distributed to victims and different law enforcement programs. U.S. Attorney Bharara expects next year to be an equally good year financially. But with the government hiring freeze, it's going to be a bit more challenging to keep up the current pace of these intensive investigations. Deborah Fayerick, CNN, New York.
Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years behind bars, the maximum sentence for one of the biggest swindles of all times. Some of his thousands of victims were at the courthouse, rooting for the stiffest possible punishment.
He's evil, he's a sociopath, end of story.
This is the biggest crime in the history of the universe, and he should be punished accordingly.
Madoff and his attorney Ira Sorkin asked for just 12 years behind bars. They say for the 71-year-old money manager, that amounts to a life sentence. But prosecutors pushed for the maximum, 150 years, to guarantee Madoff never gets out. 10 of Madoff's victims asked to testify here at the sentencing. Many of them have emotional stories to tell, such as how they trusted him with their savings and lost it all. Madoff also had a chance to speak. His lawyer said he'd talk about the shame and acknowledge the pain he had caused. However, in this crowd, there isn't much sympathy, and the list of victims is huge, with little hope of recovering any significant portion of their wealth.
I was in the process of retiring. In fact, they would have been around now. I was going to retire. There's no retirement for me.
Lawyers are scraping together what's left of the Madoff fortune to divide among the victims. And last week, Madoff's wife, Ruth, agreed to give up $80 million in assets. That includes her Manhattan penthouse. She remains free, not charged so far with playing a part in the crime. That means she'll be around to visit her husband, most likely at a low or medium security prison near New York City. Drew Levinson, CBS News, New York.
Game, move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Right, but if you can make your client's money at the same time, it's advantageous to everyone, correct?
No. Number one rule of Wall Street. Nobody. Okay, if you're Warren Buffett or if you're Jimmy Buffett, nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down.
Distinguished himself in terms of his cooperation. Mr. Belford has helped the government win convictions of over 24 serious offenders and helped them recover millions of dollars to be made available for restitution to their victims.
The sentence of the court shall be 36 months in federal prison.